The new episode of Meghan Markle's podcast entitled, Breaking Down the Bimbo, was released on Spotify on Tuesday, October 18, featuring media personality Paris Hilton. The 41-year-old, who boasts more than 20 million followers on Instagram, grew up in the limelight, attending glitzy parties at just 15 years old, and was described as New York's leading it girl in 2001 by Vanity Fair. It was this reputation that Meghan admitted she had judged Paris for, explaining to her listeners that she had been nervous to meet her because she doubted she would have anything in common with the reality TV star. A total of 6 episodes of Meghan's Archetypes podcast have now been released on Spotify, where she has interviewed a number of famous faces, including singer Mariah Carey and Grand Slam champion Serena Williams. Yet Meghan shared with both her listeners and Paris that she was most nervous to speak to the Hilton heiress out of all her recent guests. Meghan and Paris are both 41 and grew up in Los Angeles, but Paris moved to New York when she was 15. The Duchess explained that growing up in the 90s, the trend was to be sexy, hot and cool, with Paris being within the zeitgeist of that culture, while she was a nerd. Meghan has described herself as such before, telling Marie Claire in 2013 that she was always the theater nerd, while at the prestigious Northwestern University, Illinois, where she studied a double major in both theater and international relations. Meghan Markle admitted on her podcast that she had prejudged Paris Hilton. Image, Getty. Meghan talked about her being on Deal or No Deal, where she felt her beauty was prioritized. Image, Getty. The 41-year-old mom of 2 explained that she felt as though she did not know what she could talk about with Paris, as much of her career had been built on the idea that she was not smart. Meghan, addressing Paris, said, "I remember growing up in LA, around the same age, and you were just so famous and so beautiful, all the things that, especially when you're young, and especially in the 90s, all that pop culture stuff, it was so influential. Everything was about trying to be sexy and hot and cool. I mean, there was this moment, you were in that zeitgeist and I was this nerd, so it was so hard for me to think about what you and I would talk about when so much of the identity, whether it was placed upon you, or you adopted, or embraced, or used to build a career, was about not leaning into being smart." Paris admitted that she too had been nervous because she is shy, and because they had not met before. However, she told the Duchess that her fears were quelled when she listened to Meghan's first podcast with Williams, which made her realize she is cool, and such a girl's girl. Read more. Meghan Markle opens up on time as briefcase girl. Paris Hilton said she adopted a Barbie girl persona as a safety mechanism. Image, Getty. Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie starred in the reality TV show, The Simple Life. Image, Getty. Meghan continued, "The popular image that I had of Paris was so incredibly strong, just based on her time in the public eye, starting in the late 90s after her family moved from Beverly Hills to New York. She became this complete it girl. Partying night after night, escapades splashed across tabloids, and she was the Hilton Hotel heiress who lived at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel." Despite all the glitz and glamour surrounding her life, Paris revealed on the podcast that she had adopted a Barbie girl persona as a safety mechanism following her traumatic experience at Provo Canyon School, Utah, where she was allegedly abused. In fact, the businesswoman explained that she had actually been a tomboy growing up. Paris told Meghan that after she left the school, she promised herself that she would work hard so that no one could ever control her again, which then led to her building a fantasy life of a Barbie doll character. At the age of 22, Paris starred in a reality television show alongside Lionel Richie's daughter, Nicole, called The Simple Life. She claimed that on the show she was told by the producers to be the rich, dumb blonde, which then led her to play into that character. Don't miss, BBC warned funding model no longer fit for purpose as it turns 100. Insight, do you think an independent Scotland would thrive like Sturgeon says? Whole teen with heart condition could have been killed in bully attack. ANALSIS. Meghan Markle admitted that she had been envious of Paris Hilton. Image, Getty, trending Lukashenko mobilizing troops could spell disaster for Putin. Epic fail since the war in Ukraine began. Belarus has not been directly involved in the fighting. However, its authoritarian leader Alexander Lukashenko has now threatened to take up arms. What could it mean for the conflict? Find out here. The Duchess then admitted at the end of the episode that she had been nervous to speak to Paris because she had judged her as she had previously doubted that there could be anything wrong with the socialite's life. Meghan explained that this had stemmed from her own confidence being wrapped up in being smart rather than pretty, which meant she envied Paris as a result. She continued, "You heard me at the beginning of this episode talk about how I was nervous for this one. Nervous because, while I'm embarrassed to admit it, I had a judgment about Paris. And I don't like having judgment. Doesn't feel good. When I grew up, she was beautiful, rich and famous. What could possibly be wrong with her life? I would think. And because my entire sense of self-confidence was wrapped up in being the smart one and not the pretty one, I found a way to project all of my judgment and envy onto her. Who would want to act stupid? I would think. Envy can be a very dangerous thing, as can judgment. I was ashamed to admit that I harbored either of those feelings." Quote.